millionaire, left paralyzed after shocking discovery about his son and the new nanny's secret. James Turner stood in his sprawling penthouse, the rain slashing against the towering glass walls like knives. The city lights blurred into streaks, drowning beneath the storm's fury. He was at the top, rich beyond measure, sharp as a tack, and feared in every boardroom across New York. But tonight, something gnawed deep inside him. Unease, cold and strange. He moved through the sleek, empty rooms, the silence in his luxury home louder than any street noise. The heavy scent of expensive leather and polished wood filled the air. But James's heart hammered wildly, as if warning him of something he couldn't yet see. Then, through the dim hallway, a sudden muffled sound caught his attention, a whispered voice and a hurried laugh. His son's voice? And another, the nanny's, the new woman they'd hired barely a week ago. James froze, curiosity and dread twisted inside him. He crept to see. What he saw was a silent shock, too close, too secretive. His son and the nanny were not just playing games. Their closeness was something darker. A hidden pact, a dangerous secret. His blood ran cold. His hands shook violently. His mind raced faster than the storm outside. How had he missed this? How deep did this secret go? Then came the accident. In his panic, James lost his footing on the slippery marble floor. The sharp crack echoed through the silent penthouse. Darkness tumbled down on him. He lay there, pain ripping through his body, the cold seeping into his bones. Movement refused him. Panic seized him like a vice. He was paralyzed, lying helpless, breath ragged. James's sharp mind didn't snap shut. No, it hunted harder. That terrible secret clung to him, twisting his thoughts. He needed answers. Who was that woman really? What game was playing out beneath his very nose? Days blurred into restless nights. Every word from his son, every look from the nanny sent sparks of suspicion crawling under his skin. The more he tried to pull the pieces apart, the more the picture fragmented. Lies, betrayal, or something worse? His world cracked open, and inside the silence, someone was watching. Then, just as the cold started sinking into his bones, his phone buzzed sharp. A message. No name, no explanation, just a line that burned through the fog. You don't know the half of it. And trusting the wrong person might cost you everything. His chest tightened. The room seemed to close in. Who was sending this? Friend? Enemy? How much worse did this nightmare go? James lay back, eyes wide, heart pounding with fear and fury. One thing was clear. His nightmare was just beginning. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without warning. Just quickly check that red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming your way. And while you're at it, leave that powerful like. It helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, What city are you watching from? I love getting to know each incredible person who is part of this community. Your participation makes a. James lay back on the cold marble floor, chest tight, eyes wide, gripping the edge of consciousness. The message haunted him. You don't know the half of it, and trusting the wrong person might cost you everything. His mind raced, every nerve raw with fear and fury. Who was behind this? What nightmare waited just beyond his reach? Suddenly, the elevator dinged open. The soft click of footsteps rippled through the silence, slow and deliberate. James didn't move. He couldn't, but his gaze strained toward the sound, muscles trembling, breath shallow. "James?" The nanny's voice, low and strained, floated down the hall. "Help!" he whispered, voice barely there. "What the hell is going on here?" Luke shouted, his eyes locked on his mother's trembling hands and the figure sprawled on the floor. "Dad's hurt," the nanny stammered. "He fell." "No, that's not what happened." Luke cut her off, stepping closer. "You need to leave, now." The nanny's face drained. "Luke, please." Her voice cracked, but Luke was already pulling out his phone, fingers shaking. "I'm calling someone." Suddenly, the nanny's expression snapped. She lunged toward Luke, grappling for the phone. The struggle was sudden and fierce, knocking chairs over, shattering the quiet night. "Stop it!" James tried to scream, chest burning, but nothing came out. His limbs stayed frozen. Then Luke yanked the phone free, glaring at the nanny with something raw and fierce. Hate? Fear? James couldn't tell. The nanny backed away, eyes wild. And in that moment, a small flash of light caught James's eyes. A gun. Luke held it, pointing it not at the nanny, but at James. "Dad," Luke said, voice low and steady, the gun shaking in his grip. "You never knew, did you, the secret you buried so deep?" James's heart slammed into silence. "Luke? What?" But the words died in his throat. Luke's finger tightened on the trigger. The room froze. The storm outside was a distant roar compared to the pounding in James's ears. Then the nanny screamed. "No! Luke, don't!" Luke's hand trembled violently. His eyes glistened with tears. Fury mixed with pain and something James could barely recognize. Then Luke lowered the gun. "I can't," he said, voice breaking. The nanny collapsed to her knees, sobbing. The raw, jagged sound tore through the space between them, cutting sharper than any storm outside. James's mind burned. Luke's words echoed. "The secret you buried so deep." Ah, his son, his boy, was not just colluding with the nanny. It was worse. The secret. It was inside his own blood. A flash of realization struck. Luke wasn't just hiding the truth. "James, what's next?" The secret. That one promised. Something pressed everything into the world. He was protecting it. But from what? From whom? And who in this penthouse was truly the stranger? James's world shattered once again. The man he thought he knew, his own son, was a stranger with a gun in his hand, and secrets that could destroy them all. And as the rain hammered down like judgment, the nanny whispered, "You never saw this coming, because none of it is real." James blinked, confusion crashing over him. "What do you mean?" His lips were dry. The nanny looked at Luke, then back at James, her eyes cold and clear. "This isn't a simple betrayal. It's a lie they created to protect you from a truth too dark to face." Luke nodded, voice hollow. "Dad, you left us to die. But we found a way back, a new start. You just don't remember." James's chest tightened until it felt like it would burst dry. He tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. His mind screamed, "No, this can't be happening." The storm raged outside, but inside that penthouse, a far more terrifying storm had just unleashed. Because now, James realized the secret wasn't about his son or the nanny. It was about himself. And the truth buried in the shadows was far darker, far deeper, and far more dangerous than anything he had ever imagined. The question was no longer who betrayed whom. It was, who was James Turner really? The phone buzzed again. Another message. "Ready to remember? Because the past is closer and deadlier than you think." And just like that, the nightmare was no longer outside the door. It was inside his mind, and it was waiting. James lay on the cold marble floor, heart pounding, breath shallow, every second stretching beyond pain. The message burned behind his eyes. "Ready to remember? Because the past is closer and deadlier than you think." His mind spun in chaos, trying to reach something just beyond his grasp. The nanny and Luke stood motionless, their faces pale, eyes locked on him like he was a ghost. The storm outside had dimmed to a slow whisper, but inside, the air tightened, colder, heavier. Then the silence shattered. The penthouse door slammed open with a howl of wind. A sharp voice cut through the tension, a voice James hadn't expected. "Stop this! Now!" All three heads turned. In the doorway stood a woman, early 40s, tall, dressed sharply in black, but the cold glint in her eyes froze the room. She moved with calm authority, as if she owned not only the space, but the secrets here. "Margot," James managed to whisper, his throat raw. The nanny gasped, stepping back. Luke's jaw clenched so tight, his face scraped with pain. "Mom?" Luke hissed, disbelief and fury clashing in his voice. James's chest tightened. If Luke had a gun before, it was useless now. This woman was a storm all her own, one he had forgotten or tried to bury. Margot walked in, slowly, eyes flicking between James, then Luke, then the nanny. "What a mess," she said softly, voice cold as ice. "And yet, I'm not surprised." James struggled to sit up, his body still betraying him. He needed answers. But what came next was a secret he wasn't ready for. Margot's eyes locked onto James's, like a predator and prey at once. "You've been chasing ghosts," she said, voice low and cutting. "But this isn't about your son or some nanny's lies." She stepped closer. "The real secret, James, is much darker." Before anyone could blink, she pulled out a thick envelope from her coat. Her hands didn't shake. Her face didn't falter. James barely breathed as she flipped it open. Inside were photos, hundreds of them, but not what he expected. No secret meetings, no shady deals. These were pictures, his face, but different. Younger, thin, gaunt, eyes hollow. But the shock wasn't just that. Each photo was marked with dates, ones James couldn't place. And then, the last picture dropped his breath to his knees. A hospital bed. A body. But it wasn't just any body. It was his. Dressed in hospital gowns, hooked up to machines, eyes closed, lips blue. Margot's voice dropped to a whisper, trembling now, but still sharp. "That man on the floor, he's not you." Luke's gun slipped from his hand with a loud clatter. What is she talking about?" the nanny stammered. James's mind reeled. If this wasn't him, if the man on the floor wasn't the James Turner he remembered, then who was he? Margot swallowed, fighting tears. "James Turner died 5 years ago. You survived the fall from the bridge, barely, but your mind snapped. The company took you in, created this life around a man who doesn't exist anymore." His heart hammered so fast, he thought it might burst. "You were replaced." Luke's face twisted in horror and confusion. "That's impossible." "Maybe it was," Margot said, stepping back. "Or maybe it's the truth you never wanted to see." James's mouth went dry. The heavy weight in his chest grew unbearable. His entire world flipped and shattered in a fractured spin. He choked on the word. "Who am I then? What's real?" The room felt suddenly smaller, claustrophobic, and then without warning, his phone buzzed again. Another message. "The truth's been written in blood and lies. Look closer. It's never been about what you lost, but who you became." James's eyes darted to Margot, then Luke, then the nanny. They all held secrets bigger than any of them. And the nightmare, his nightmare, was far from over. But one question clawed at him, louder than fear. If he wasn't James Turner, then who the hell was he? James's eyes darted from Margot to Luke to the nanny, the weight of that last message burying itself deep in his chest. If he wasn't James Turner, then who the hell was he? The room spun, the cold air biting sharper with every heartbeat. Margot's gaze didn't waver. "You need to understand. Everything you've believed, every memory, it could be fabrications." His voice cracked as he tried to speak. "But why? Why build this lie?" Before she could answer, the sharp click of a door unlocking echoed through the penthouse. Everyone froze. The bathroom door creaked open. Slowly, a figure stepped out. Tall, gaunt, face pale and ghostly. The man looked exactly like James. No worse, like a broken mirror reflection. Same eyes, same jaw, but hollow, ragged. James's heart slammed against his ribs. Who are you?" he choked out, voice barely a whisper. The other man's lips twitched into a bitter smile. "You tell me, because I'm the real James Turner." A silence so thick it choked the air. Margot's eyes flicked sharply. This is how it ended. The James you've known was supposed to be gone. But the body disappeared. The company covered it up. The man stepped forward, slowly. His breath was ragged. "I woke up from a coma 3 months ago. Saw what happened. Heard what they told you." Luke's mouth fell open. The nanny gasped. "So they made you this?" The man looked James up and down, venom dripping. A hollow copy, a mask. James backed instinctively, chest tightening. His mind screamed against the impossibility. "I am him, the one who survived." The man's voice cracked, raw. "Everything you have, it's stolen from me. My life, my family. And now you're supposed to be me, living my lie." Luke's hands shook. "No, this can't be." But the man's eyes burned with desperate truth. Margot's voice broke the spell. "The first accident, the jump from the bridge. He was declared dead. They didn't want the world to know the truth. A clean slate, a new man to run the empire." James felt a hot rush in his throat. Reality peeled away like burning paper. Suddenly, the man bent forward, reaching into his coat. Everyone tensed. But instead of a weapon, he pulled out a thin folder. Inside, a crumpled ID card glinted under the harsh lights. "Proof," he hissed. "James Turner's real ID, birth certificates, DNA tests." Then, with a sudden movement, he shoved the papers into James's shaking hands. James stared, helpless. The papers burned hot, heavier than any weight he'd ever felt. "Why now? Why show me?" James's voice cracked. "Because," the man whispered, voice raw with pain, "they want you gone. I'm taking back what's mine." Margot stepped between them. "No one's leaving this room until we sort this out." But the tension snapped. Luke lunged for the man. Chaos exploded. Furniture crashed. The nanny screamed. Margot shouted orders, trying to pull Luke back. James, paralyzed in his own body, could only watch as the truth spilled like acid, eating through every bond, every lie. And then the elevator bell dinged again. New footsteps, sharp, deliberate. The penthouse door swung open. A man in a dark suit entered, holding a badge. "Federal agents," he announced coldly. "We're here to arrest James Turner for fraud, conspiracy, and identity theft." James's head lolled back. His breath hitched. The man who claimed to be the real James stared both of them down. Margot's eyes narrowed, lips pressed tight. Luke's gun was forgotten on the floor. The nanny trembled, caught in the storm of impossible truths. "Wait!" James croaked, every nerve frayed to breaking. The agent pulled something from his pocket, a small device. It buzzed quietly. "Analysis confirms," he said, voice flat. "This James here has no records, no trace before 3 years ago." James' chest squeezed tight, like the air was being sucked right out. "But the thing is," the agent continued, voice chilling, "we found his real identity buried deep inside our system." He clicked the device again. A screen lit up. A face appeared. No resemblance to either man. A stranger. A total stranger. James swallowed hard. The nanny broke into a whisper, barely audible. "Then who is he?" And in that moment, all of it shattered. The nightmare wasn't just inside the mind. It was in the blood, in the lies, in the soul. Because none of them knew who was really living this life. Or if the real James Turner was lost forever. Or worse, was he even alive? The room held its breath, and outside, the rain stopped. The city waited for answers that might never come. The room held its breath. Outside, the rain stopped. The city waited for answers that might never come. Then, suddenly, the lights in the penthouse flickered. A harsh, grinding hum filled the space. The elevator bell dinged again, but this time it was different. Lower, sinister. Before anyone could move, the walls themselves seemed to pulse. The glass windows shuddered like a beating heart. James's mind screamed, "What the hell is this?" The nanny gasped, clutching her chest. Margot's eyes narrowed. Luke stepped back, dropping the gun. His knees buckled. Then the room darkened. The massive windows went black. The city disappeared, and the sharp, steady voice of a woman filled the silence. Enough. The voice was cold and real, but utterly impossible. It came from nowhere and everywhere. The air rippled. The figure that appeared first was impossibly tall, her silhouette framed by shadows. Slowly, she stepped into the weak light leaking from the hallway. Her face chilled the blood. It was James's face. Same eyes, same jaw. Only this woman was smiling, and her voice, sweet and cruel, cut through the thick tension. "I am every lie you've ever believed. The scream behind every silence. The shadow you never saw." James's heart slammed. His breath caught. "No," he whispered. This can't be." She smiled wider, teeth gleaming sharp and unnatural. "I'm what the real James Turner buried deep inside you. The truth you've tried to forget." Luke's face went white. Margot's hand flew to her mouth. The nanny trembled, stepping back toward the doorway. "I am the fracture in your mind," she said softly. "The broken piece you call him." Pain exploded in James's chest. His limbs twitched, muscles tight and useless. He wanted to scream, but no sound came. The woman, this twisted double, moved closer. Her eyes burned with something fierce. "James," she whispered, fingers grazing his cheek with icy touch. "The man lying on the floor, he's not a copy. He's the cage." The room shifted again, the walls bending like paper. Suddenly, James saw flickers, memories he'd never lived. Dark rooms filled with machines, voices whispering, calling him names he didn't know, faces that weren't real, yet somehow they filled his bones. The real James gasped and lunged for the woman, but she vanished like smoke. Margot blinked, stunned. The nanny whispered, voice breaking, "There's something inside him. Not just a man. Something else." Luke dropped to his knees, hands on his head. James felt the pieces snap so sharply his skin crawled. This nightmare was no longer about stolen lives or hidden pasts. It was about who he was inside. A prison, a mask, a shadow of someone else. The elevator bell dinged once more. The penthouse door slammed open. And that's when the security monitor on the wall flickered to life. Static at first, then a video. James's jaw slackened. The screen showed him lying alone on a cold hospital bed. But behind him, a figure. His face, and the face of the woman who just spoke. They were the same, but not. The figure reached out, touching James's shoulder. The voice came again, this time from the screen. "We are the fracture, the real, the fake, the silence in the scream." James's trembling hand reached for the remote, but before he could press anything, the screen shattered. A deafening crash. The lights exploded back to life. The room held a breath again, and still, no one moved, because none could say what had just happened or who James really was. And worse, what was waiting, hiding inside the fracture. The room held its breath. Outside, the rain stopped. The city waited for answers that might never come. Then, suddenly, the lights in the penthouse flickered. A harsh, grinding hum filled the space. The elevator bell dinged again, but this time it was different. Lower, darker, heavy. Before anyone could move, the walls seemed to pulse, trembling like a living thing. James's mind screamed, "What now?" The nanny gasped, clutching her chest. Margot's eyes sharpened. Luke stepped back, dropping the gun. His knees buckled. The room swallowed the sound of the city outside. The giant windows went black. The world vanished. Then a voice, cold, smooth, impossible, flowed through the silence. "Enough." The air quivered. From the shadows, a figure emerged, tall, silent, and a face that stopped every breath. It was James's face, but the smile was cruel, the eyes sharp with something wild. "I am every lie you ever believed," she said. "The scream behind your silence, the shadow you buried deep." James's heart hammered, his throat dried up. No, this can't be. She stepped closer, fingers ice on his cheek. I am the fracture in your mind. Luke's face drained. Margot's hand flew to her mouth. The nanny took a trembling step back. James wanted to shout, but no sound came. Then the figure vanished like smoke. Margot blinked, stunned. The nanny whispered, voice cracking, "There's something inside him. Something else." Luke sank to his knees, hands shaking. James felt his skin crawl. The nightmare shifted. It was never about stolen memories or hidden pasts. It was about who he really was. A cage, a mask, a broken mirror. The elevator dinged again. The penthouse door slammed open. The security monitor flickered on. Static first, then a video. James's jaw slackened. On the screen, he lay alone in a hospital bed. Behind him, a figure, his face, and the face of that woman, the fracture in his mind. They were both there, one reaching out. "We are the fracture," the voice on the screen said, soft but real. The real, the fake, the scream, in the silence. James's hand reached for the remote, but before he could move, the screen shattered. Lights exploded back on. The room held its breath. No one moved. No one could say what had just happened, or who James really was. Then, a sound, a thud. From the far corner, a staggering figure collapsed against the wall. It was the real James, the man who claimed to be the original. His eyes rolled back. His body went limp. Everyone froze. Margot rushed to him, shouting, "Luke, help me!" Luke's hands trembled as he bent down. The man gasped, voice breaking. "It's too late." "Too late for what?" James crowed. "They engineered you from me, to take everything I had. But inside you, something else. Something alive. Dark, watching, waiting." The room spun. James's head throbbed with a new kind of fear. The nanny whispered, "It's not just his mind. He's been infected." Suddenly, James felt it. Deep inside his chest, a cold, crawling ache. A beat. A pulse that was not his own. His vision blurred. Then, with a shuddering breath, he collapsed back. The storm outside had quieted, but inside the penthouse, a far worse storm had just begun. Because now the nightmare wasn't about ghosts or lies. It was viral. It was inside. James Turner was no longer who he thought. The question gripped them all, colder than ice. What was living inside him? And what would it do when it woke? The room was silent. The city waited for what no one could yet understand. The room held its breath. Outside, the rain had stopped. The city waited for something no one could name. James lay back on the cold floor, chest tight, limbs heavy. The words from the real James shook the air. "You're not just a copy. You're my replacement. The poison they gave me." The weight of those words crushed him. A cold pulse beat inside his chest, cold and alien. But before anyone could move, a sharp crack echoed, a high-pitched snap that shattered the silence like glass breaking underfoot. The lights flickered violently, then died. Darkness swallowed the penthouse whole. A low hum started, growing louder, vibrating through the walls, shaking the floor beneath them. Panic ripped through the room as the elevator shafts shuddered. Then, a blinding white light burst from the hallway. Everyone squinted, shielding their eyes. Out of the light stepped a man, calm, dressed in a black coat soaked from the rain, his eyes cold and unreadable. His voice cut through the chaos like a knife. Enough. He looked at James, then the others. A slow, cruel smile spread on his face. Who do you think you are? The question was venom wrapped in silk. James's head snapped to him. Who are you? The stranger stepped forward. No one. And yet, I am everything you've been missing. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small device. A flash, and suddenly James's mind exploded. Images slammed into him like a freight train. A dark room full of screens. A dozen versions of himself, each a man, but different. Younger, older, happy, broken. They weren't memories. They were experiments. The man spoke again, voice low but fatal. You're not a man at all. You never were. Gasps echoed around the room. Margot's breath hitched. Luke's jaw went slack. James's chest hammered. What? What do you mean? The stranger smiled wider. You're a ghost. A copy created to replace the real James Turner. But that's not it. He paused. The silence pressed in like a vice. You're the prototype for something far worse. A living weapon, designed to infect, to erase, to control. James's breath caught like a scream caught in a throat. The pulse inside him grew louder, a sharp, relentless beat. Virus, the man whispered, eyes glinting. But not the kind you can see, the kind you feel. Suddenly the stranger's hand darted out, a syringe gleaming silver. Before anyone could stop him, he plunged it into James's neck. Pain exploded. Fire rolled through his veins. His vision blurred. His heart raced like a broken drum. The pulse became a roar. And then James's eyes snapped open. But the world was different. The penthouse was gone. Instead, he lay strapped to a cold metal table under harsh fluorescent lights. A white ceiling stretched out above him, endless and merciless. Voices murmured, a man and a woman speaking softly nearby. Subject 17 is awake. Status? Stable, but awakening faster than projected. James's throat jolted with a dry cough. The woman stepped forward. Her eyes locked on his like a lifeline and a sentence. James, or what you think is James, you were never in that penthouse. You never lived that life. He tried to speak, but words failed. She smiled, sharp and knowing. That entire nightmare, the sun, the nanny, the false memories, they're part of the simulation. His heart twisted. Simulation? She nodded. We created it to protect you, to keep the virus dormant. But you broke free. Now everything is unraveling. James's chest tightened until he could barely breathe. Emptiness swallowed his mind. His hands clenched the straps. The man spoke, voice grim. The others don't exist. They were constructs. You, the virus, and the cure. James swallowed hard, his mind screaming. If everything he lived was a lie, then who was he really, and who, in this fractured nightmare, was the real enemy? The room went silent. Outside, somewhere far away, rain began again. And in that moment, the nightmare, his nightmare, was no longer between walls. It was inside the cage of his own mind, waiting, watching, and ready to break free. James's eyes fluttered open, the harsh buzzing of machines filling his ears. The cold metal under his skin was unforgiving. His chest rose and fell in ragged bursts. The weight of heavy chains pressing down on his wrists and ankles. Blinking through the harsh white light, he tried to sit, only to be slammed back by thick restraints. His throat was raw. His voice cracked as he gasped for air. "You're awake," the woman's voice hummed nearby. Calm, dangerous. James struggled, panic rising like fire. "Where am I? What's happening?" The man stepped forward, eyes grim. "You're inside the experiment now. The truth is no longer a dream." James's mind reeled. The nightmare in the penthouse, the son, the nanny, Margot, they were simulations. Fabricated ghosts to protect what? Him? Or something buried deep beneath layers of lies? But before James could push further, the room shifted. The door slammed open with a violent bang. Everyone snapped toward the sound. A nurse, pale and shaking, stumbled inside. "Doctor, you need to see this." Her voice was frantic, breathless. The woman stepped aside as the nurse pulled out a tablet, glancing nervously at the room before tapping the screen. Then the screen lit up, showing live footage, static at first. Then a face appeared. Familiar, but wrong. It was James. Really James. Or the man who took his place. Or the virus. But there was something else. Behind the figure on the screen, a flashing red warning blared. Containment breach. And then the screen flickered, and suddenly a body exploded through the wall behind the nurse. Glass shattered. Concrete dust billowed. The real James, ragged and bleeding, staggered inside, wild-eyed, frantic. He collapsed into the room's center, gasping. They lied. All of it. Everything you think you know is twisted. James, hands still chained, tried to scream, but only swallowed a sob. The woman's eyes snapped wide. Impossible. The man's voice grew sharp. He wasn't scheduled to wake for another month. The nurse whispered, "He escaped containment, but he's infected. Deadly." Suddenly, James felt it. The cold pulse inside his chest slammed into a jagged rhythm. The real James's gaze landed on him. Fury and familiarity burning deep. "You're not just a copy. You're the symptom, the sickness they injected to kill me. James's heart hammered. Bones felt like they might crack. The woman stepped forward. No, you're both the virus, two sides of the same disease. Before anyone could react, the alarms screamed, red lights flashing wildly. The walls trembled. The floor vibrated. Lockdown initiated, the man said, voice taut. The nurse cried, "We're trapped." James's breath caught, his chest crushed under fear. But then the real James whispered, voice hoarse. "You need to listen." He wheezed, swallowing blood. The experiment was never meant to catch one virus. They bred two. He coughed violently, eyes blazing. They're not after one of us. They want to wipe us both out, to erase the truth. But we're not victims anymore. James's mind spun. Who was the real enemy? The company? The virus? Or himself? The real James reached out, shaking. We're bonded, two halves of the same nightmare. And if we don't stop it, it'll spread beyond these walls, into the world. The woman's stare cracked for the first time. The man swallowed, voice barely a whisper. We're already too late. James's chest tightened until he thought it would burst. Shadows stretched across the room. The chains cut into his skin. He realized the nightmare wasn't just inside his mind. It was inside his blood. And now it wasn't about who he was. It was about what he would become. The door slammed shut. The room plunged into darkness. And the only sound left was the pulsing beat of a virus waking inside two broken men. James's mind screamed, which one would the world believe? Or would anyone survive to tell the truth at all? The door slammed shut behind them with a violent crash. Darkness swallowed the room whole. The only sound was the relentless thump, thump of something alive, pulsing deep inside James's chest. He lay back, limbs heavy, breath shallow. The chains dug into his skin like cold fire. The real James coughed, each breath ragged, his eyes burning with pain and hatred. We're two halves, he rasped, two sides of the same sickness. A jagged silence slammed down around them. Then the prisoner in the black coat moved, slow, quiet. His voice cut through the thick darkness like a blade. You don't even know what or who you are. James's head snapped toward the shadow. Who is there? He breathed, panic twisting in his gut. The man stepped forward, stepping into the harsh light from the corner. No one spoke, because the face that looked back at James was a mirror. But the eyes, cold and empty. And then the words came like a punch, hard, brutal. You think he's the real James Turner, the rightful owner of that name? You're both wrong. James's chest tightened so much it felt like it would split open. The man took a deep breath, voice low, sharp. I'm the original. A gasp ripped out of Margot. The woman in the white coat's eyes widened like a startled animal. "You?" Luke inhaled, disbelief strangling his voice. "Yes," the dark-faced man said. The one they erased to make room for all the others. They patched you together from my pieces." James's head lolled back. Everything shattered. Again. "And the virus?" James pushed, voice cracked, trembling. "What is it?" The man's lips curved, bitter and sharp. "It's not a disease. It's a sentence." He stepped closer to James's chained form. "They didn't want to kill me. Not really. They wanted to break me. So they took pieces of me. My mind. My body. But you're not just a copy or a virus. You, James, they built you as a weapon to finish what they started." A cold claw seized James's heart. "Weapon?" Margot whispered. The original James nodded grimly. "They wanted control over a man, a mind, a life. But something went wrong." He looked up, eyes smoldering. "They built a cage and imprisoned us both." Suddenly, alarms screamed. Red lights slammed on, flashing wildly. The room shook. Then the darkness roared, and James's mind shattered again, because the last sickening truth hit him like a stone. "This," the man said, voice cracking, "is not just an experiment." His hand went inside his coat. Slowly, he pulled out a small, flickering device. Everyone stared. With a cold smile, he pushed a single button. The world dissolved, and the nightmare twisted. Not in the metal room, not in some secret lab, but inside a screen, waiting, watching, and smiling back at them all. Because James Turner, the real one, the copies, the virus, wasn't just a victim. He was the star of a show no one knew they'd been watching. A live broadcast. And the audience? The whole bloody world. The screen flickered, and the last thing James saw before his mind broke free was his own face, smiling back at him, with a warning no one could ignore. There is no escape, only roles, and the one you think you know is just the one they want you to play. The room went silent. The chains rattled. And outside, the city held its breath, waiting for the curtain to rise. The room went dead silent. The chains rattled as James's chest heaved. Pain, sharp, raw, impossible to hide. Sweat dripped cold down his spine. The weight of the truth pressed down like a lead coffin. The broadcast faded. The screens died. Margot's voice finally cracked through the silence. "This ends now." Luke stood, trembling but steady. "We have to fight, not for who we thought we were, but for who we still might be." The real James coughed painfully, locking eyes with James, the man chained but alive. "You're stronger than them," he said, "stronger than any lie. You're more than their puppet." James nodded slowly, a flicker of hope sparking deep inside his chest, amid the chaos. Then the room shook. Alarms blared. Red lights bathed cold metal walls. The woman in white barked orders, but James barely heard. His mind raced, pulsing with fierce determination. A plan formed. Not perfect, maybe not safe, but a way out. Not just from these chains or this room, but from all the lies. Suddenly, the blackout lifted. Lights snapped back on. A single raw scream tore through the air. The real James. He bolted forward, crashing into the control panel. "Cut the lockdown!" he yelled, through gasps. Buttons pressed fast. Metal doors groaned open. Freedom, tasting sweet and dangerous. James struggled to stand, muscles weak but will blazing. Luke helped him up, and even Margot stepped closer, not as a stranger, but an ally in this nightmare. The nanny, tears streaking her face, whispered, "We're not done yet." They stumbled through cold corridors, twisting and turning into the unknown. Behind them, the shadows of their pasts growled and cracked. But ahead was silence, dark but open. Outside, city lights blinked far below, untouched by their battle. James looked up at the gray sky clearing. The storm was passing, but inside him, another one was just waking. His heart hammered in his chest, a warning and a promise. "Who I am," James breathed, voice rough, "is still unwritten." Margot smiled faintly, eyes soft with something like hope. Luke's grip tightened around James's arm, and from the darkness, the faint buzz of a message pinged on James's phone. A new line, simple and chilling. "This is just the beginning." The group froze. The city still held its breath. And James Turner, whoever he really was, stepped forward into the unknown. All right, listen up. You need to subscribe now to this channel if you don't want to miss the exclusive stories coming next. Seriously, hit that red button before you forget. Right now, smash the like button. This is the moment to show your support. Your single tap keeps this story alive. And please, flood the comments with everything you think about the ending. Your theories, your feelings. Don't hold back. This community thrives on your voice. Lastly, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how it all ends. Only true fans get how important it is to back the channel like this. So go ahead, subscribe, like, comment, and share. Because what just happened, it's only the tip of the iceberg. And you definitely don't want to miss what's coming next.